Hi everyone, Amy here with my midweek updates for our week 3 discussion, which is our first peer review workshop for your first essay of the semester, the summary essay. I'll get to my feedback on your rough drafts in just a minute, but I also want to point out, if you haven't already, do go ahead and take a look. I posted in the news my feedback, my final comments on last week's discussion, as well as a video that walks you through how to format your essays, your formal essays, to turn them in your rough draft and final draft, as well as the works cited page for that, and then also your updates and to-do list for this week if you haven't seen those already. So just jumping right into the discussion, it was good to see that most of you got your rough drafts posted on time. Remember that when we're doing a rough draft peer review workshop activity for our discussion, that discussion is also worth 10% on your final grade for the essay. So if you miss the workshop, you can't get an A on your final draft. So just keep that in mind. You can still get late points for it if you post your rough draft today, but if you don't post your rough draft or complete a review of another student's essay, you will lose that 10%. So let me just jump in here. Overall, I think that you guys are doing a pretty good job with your rough drafts. Some of you are still struggling to identify the thesis overall, and then several of you are also struggling with objectivity, either through including examples of evidence that are far too specific or actually coming right out and providing your opinion or evaluation of the essay. So I'll try to talk about both of those things. But remember, when you are summarizing, your goal is to provide a condensed, objective account of the main ideas and features of a text. So it should be condensed, it should be shortened, so you want to just stick to the big picture and leave out any of the minutia or overly specific details. It should be objective, meaning that it should not have any of your opinion or subjective responses in there, and it should just focus on the main ideas and features of the text. So primarily the thesis and the reasons or the supporting points that the author uses to support that thesis. Okay, so I did see several strong examples, though, of many of you who were able to execute all of those goals effectively. I want to just get some specific kind of logistical stuff out of the way first. When you are doing your formatting, don't forget to include the running header. Let me just jump into an example here. I can't remember who had them and who didn't, so I'm just going to try one here. Yeah, see, this one does not. Kendall, I'm picking on you. Sorry about that. Remember that I did have a tutorial for this in the news this week, but just in case you missed that, all you have to do for the running header is double click in that top inch of the page, and then this toolbar will pop up, and instead of going to the header and footer boxes, go directly to the page number box, and it will give you options for where to put the page number. So in this case for MLA, you want the top of the page, and then the third one down will put it all the way to the right, and then you can just type in your last name, in this case for Kendall. So make sure that you do go back and do that before you submit your final draft of the essay. And then for your works cited, remember that you should be starting this down on its own page, just at the top of whatever the next page is after your summary ends. It should always be works cited, even if there is only one source being cited. I know that seems strange, but that's just convention. And then this is correct. You have the author's last name, comma, first name, the article title in quotes, the source title in italics, the publication date, and in MLA, all the dates are formatted as in the date, the month, and then the year, and you actually don't need commas in that case. Then the word web, then your access date, which would actually be formatted the same way. So we don't need commas because none of the numerals are right next to each other. You need a period at the end, and then you also want to have what's called a hanging indent. And the way to do that is to highlight the whole thing, and you can either then just hit Control T, which will do it, or you can go to your paragraph toolbox, and right above where you would do the spacing, if you were double spacing this, there's a section for indentation, and you can go under where it says special and select hanging. Okay, so those are just a couple of kind of details that will make your essay a little bit more academic looking, a little bit more conventional, and a little bit easier for me to read. So thank you, Kendall, for providing us an example there. But I did want to also point out that there is actually a sample of the essay included in our content documents for Unit 1. This will always be the case for each of the major essays that we work on throughout the semester, but since this is our first unit, I'll point it out specifically here. So when you go to the module for Unit 1 Summary Essay, you can see there's a whole sub-module there just for the Major Writing Assignment 1 Summary. And this is where you would have gotten your assignment sheet. It's also where you can access the Dropbox if you don't want to go directly up to the Dropbox here. But you can also see there's a file there that is the Summary Essay Sample. And so when you click on that, it will open and you can see all the formatting stuff that I'm looking for. The stuff I have in parentheses here are the things that you'll need to replace with your own specific information. So for example, your name, your section number, your last name. Okay, and then I also want to show you here that the sample provides you with an accurate example of the work cited. So for any essays that we do over the course of the semester, you can really just go to the sample and follow the layout that is provided there, because I always make sure that these are 100% accurate so you can follow right along. So you can see in this case, we actually also have the publication, the organization behind the publishing of the document, or the publisher itself, provided right after the source title in italics, but it does come followed by a comma right before the date, which Kendall had executed correctly, so I just wanted to point that out. Okay, so going back into the discussions, like I said, several of you were doing a really good job already in your rough drafts, so I wanted to point out some of the things that I saw working, and then as always kind of redirect some of the things that I think you guys are struggling with a little bit more. First of all, I wanted to highlight the correct way to introduce the article. Remember from the assignment sheet that you want to present the author, title, publication date, and publication source right away in the first sentence. And so that's a lot of information, and it can be kind of hard to get it all into one sentence, but if you're able to punctuate it correctly, then it can be executed in a grammatically correct way. And so this one here I think does it very well. So we say, or this person says, in his article, quote, web privacy and praise of oversharing, comma, published online for italics Time magazine on May 20th, 2010, comma, Stephen Johnson explains, ... and then you can go right into the thesis, which is what this writer does. So I wanted to pull out this example because it's punctuated correctly. It's correct that the article title goes in quotes and the publication title goes in italics. It presents the author's name first last, which is correct for in text. And the first time you introduce the source, you do want to use the author's full name, and then after that just use the author's last name, and then it works in the date in a grammatically correct way as well. So I just thought this was very successful, and I think that this is a layout that I would encourage all of you to just directly follow along with. And then your second goal after you have got all this information in the first sentence is from there to go right into the author's thesis. I saw that some of you were taking several sentences to get to Johnson's thesis. You want to try to move that up to the primary focal point of your discussion because you only have a page or so to summarize. So you need to get that main idea out of the way right up front so it makes sense to your reader what this whole thing is about, basically. So this example is from the article about Twitter, and this person says, Johnson expresses his surprise at Twitter's growth and transformation. Something as simple as a real-time status update kept within 160 characters has crossed boundaries we would never expect. The impact its users have had on the site's development is outstanding, and the proceeding effects revolutionary. So I pulled this one out because I wanted to get an example from the Twitter article, but very few of you wrote about it. But I think this one covers everything. I think it could just do it in maybe a more succinct and direct way. So for example, we have one, 2, and 3 sentences to basically get the entire thesis across here. You always want to try to sum up the thesis in a more concise and direct 1 or 2 sentence statement, even if those 2 sentences are really complex and you have to use semicolons and things like that. You want to make it as tight of a little package as you can, basically. So I think we can condense this, because when you say that Johnson is surprised about Twitter's growth and transformation, and then you say something simple has crossed boundaries we would never expect, those two things are basically the same. You're saying it grows, or it has grown and transformed. It's gone from simple to something we would never expect. That's kind of repetitive. So I don't think you need to say it twice, but maybe you could just combine these two in a more concise way to take these 2 sentences down to 1. Because in this case, for this article, all you really need to say is that, Twitter originally seemed very simple, however, it has transformed into something much more complex, and it's done so because its users have been able to revolutionize the technology. So again, these 3 sentences do cover everything in his thesis, but all you really need is a sentence about the growth and transformation and a sentence about the main cause of that being the users themselves. I also want to point out that when you are summarizing the thesis, you want to be really careful about your action verbs that you're using, and really think about those rhetorical modes that your book talks about, because when we're thinking about Johnson's purpose in writing this article, it's really not to just be expressive in his writing. He is actually trying to argue and persuade his readers to believe or agree with him. So I think that expresses is maybe not the most precise word to represent the overall point that he's trying to make, and something like argue or persuades his audience or claims or something like that would be a little more precise at getting at what his overall purpose is in writing the article itself. Okay, I also wanted to pull out an example from the Dawn of the Digital Natives article, because many of you wrote about that. And I pulled out this paragraph because in addition to all that publication information, the overall thesis, you also need to include in your summary a basic overview of all of the main supporting points that the author uses to defend the thesis that they're arguing for in the text as a whole. And so this paragraph I pulled out. I was a little concerned about taking it out of context because it does come in the middle of this person's summary, and so there's a definite discussion of the thesis first, and there's even a kind of connection back to the thesis at the end. But this paragraph itself, I think, does a really good job of getting across all of Johnson's main supporting points in what is a very complex article in a concise, succinct way by putting it in this person's own words. You can see there's only just like a word or two quoted, and that kind of reflects what we were talking about in last week's quote and paraphrase discussion. And it provides even coverage of the article. It doesn't focus on any specific examples of evidence, and it really hits all those main points. So this person says, to discredit the study, Johnson goes on to explain how its findings show no alarming consequences and how the Google generation is blossoming by using technology to its advantage. He comments on how literacy scores have remained at a relative constant despite the dire repercussions of the drop in reading, and credits it to the omission of screen-based reading in the report. Johnson also uses the advancement of political knowledge and participation to further support his rebuttal. He quotes a study that showed that using the internet as opposed to any form of media made voters more knowledgeable about and engaged with campaigns. So I really like this because one of the hardest things to do when summarizing is really cover and touch on every single one of those points that are brought up in the discussion without getting bogged down in any specific examples or evidence or things like that. And this person, I think, does in a way that is, I would say, one of the strongest summaries I've seen, even in a final draft that I've seen. So I think this paragraph is in pretty good shape. But the other thing I want to point out here is the use of attributive tags. Several of you were missing attributive tags in a lot of places, but this person has them in basically every single sentence. You see Johnson, he, Johnson, he. So even if you are using just a pronoun like he, you need to refer back to the author's name in pretty much every single sentence, because it is a summary and you're basically just using all his ideas in your discussion and not providing any of your own if you really are remaining truly objective. So that was an issue for several of you that I already mentioned. Make sure that you are not evaluating the text in any way, saying, I think this was effective or ineffective, giving your own opinion about the issues brought up in the text. You really are just trying to put what he says in the article in your own words and nothing else. I promise we will have time to do the rest of that later in the semester. And then along with that, you really don't even need to be using first person pronouns like I or second person pronouns like you, because you're really just talking about what Johnson says, he says, he says, he says. So I'm going to get cut off here, but I have more to say, so let me pause and start with another video. I'll be right back.